Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my director's spotlight on Kinji Fukasaku. Now Fukasaku was a Japanese director who was active from the 1960s through to the early 2000s. He initially achieved his popularity with a plethora of gangster films, but his filmography has a nice diversity to it. And I think we'll see that diversity when I reveal my personal top 10 list. And I want to emphasize personal because this list will probably be very different if we were to compare it to the top 10 lists of other fans of this director. Gotta be honest with you, I was not enthralled with some of Fukasaku's more highly acclaimed films. One example would be the critically acclaimed Fall Guy from 1982, which just did not work for me. Did not work. But I'm still a pretty big fan of this director, so definitely enough to compile a top 10. So let's get to the list here. My thoughts on each film will be very brief, primarily because this is a list video, not a review. And remember, titles for all of the movies I discuss will be listed in the description box below. Alright. Number 10, If You Were Young, Rage from 1970. This is a drama. This film monitors the lives of 5 resilient youngsters who have their sights set on a better life in Tokyo. Things turn out far more difficult than they had imagined. This is a good drama that develops the characters and injects realistic problems and dilemmas, especially concerning the most unreliable troublemaker of the bunch. There is also plenty of social commentary involving Japan's post-war economic boom, with all of its hopes and difficulties. Number 9, Samurai Reincarnation, also known as Makai Tensho, 1981. This is a fantasy genre bender that touches upon action, horror, and drama genres. So after surviving the slaughter of many Christians 350 years ago, a samurai denounces God for ignoring the pleas of believers. He sells his soul to Satan and receives the power to resurrect the dead to join him in a murderous rampage. Now this film starts off very well, with some atmospheric fantasy sequences in the netherworld as the lead character recruits his minions. Pacing is kind of slow, but the fantastical theme and action sequences help to keep things interesting. Number 8, Double Cross, also known as Triple Cross, 1992. This is a crime action flick. Now following the bloody aftermath of a heist, 3 robbers are double-crossed by a new accomplice, who is then tracked down amid escalating carnage and car chases. Many conflicts and shootouts ensue. Lots of action in this one. It's a fast-paced flick for sure. Fukasaku does use some wafer-thin characters who act like hyperactive nutcases, I would describe them as, which is not a tactic that typically works for me, but the pace in this one is so fast that it easily overpowers any flaws. In fact, this is probably one of this director's most purely entertaining works. It's underappreciated, in my opinion. Number 7, The Yakuza Papers 2, Deadly Fight in Hiroshima, 1973. This is a crime drama action flick. A former soldier turned Yakuza must endure jail time and is forced to kill off rival gang members in his quest to be accepted. This second installment is my favorite of the Yakuza Papers franchise, with a more focused narrative and treatment of the characters. Lots of violence and shootouts here too. Some viewers are likely scratching their heads that this film is only number 7 on this top 10 list, but I must admit that I was not that enamored with this film franchise as I was hoping to be. However, if you are new to this director, I will tell you to watch all of the Yakuza Papers movies because they are beloved by a great many people. Number 6, Graveyard of Honor, 1975. This is a crime drama action flick. This chronicles the often violent deeds of an unprincipled gangster. A look at the life of a renegade Yakuza whose violent antics get him into trouble with his own clan and then the clan of his protector. He relies on a young Tokyo courtesan who gives him shelter. Now, the interesting thing about this movie is that the main character is a man who is a soulless beast, who is completely out of control, and therefore creates problems for other characters who must deal with him as necessary. This is one of Fukasaku's most briskly paced affairs. The 2002 remake by director Takashi Miike is also very much worth checking out. Number 5, House on Fire, 1986. This is a romance, drama, comedy hybrid. Now, set in the 1950s, the complicated life of a popular writer is shared with his family and mistresses. The growing chasm between the protagonist and his wife is quite interesting to watch in this. The main characters are likable, but also rather irresponsible in terms of family life. A dose of reserved humor is peppered throughout, which is a nice touch. This is a very impressive film that is anchored by strong performances. It certainly qualifies as an obscure gem from this director. Number 4, Under the Flag of the Rising Sun, 1972. This is a war drama. The story is about a war widow who is determined to clear the name of her disgraced husband, who was supposedly court-martialed for desertion and subsequently executed. Now, she interviews a small handful of soldiers who tell of their grim experiences during World War II. Now, this is a proficiently made film from top to bottom, but most viewers will come away impressed with its narrative structure, which involves multiple contradicting accounts, as well as its dark, disturbing recreations of battleground suffering. There is also much criticism directed towards the Japanese government and military officials, from tactical mistakes to bureaucratic incompetence to outright corruption. This is a must-watch. Number 3, Virus, also known as Day of Resurrection, from 1980. This is a drama horror film. So after a deadly biological weapon is mistakenly released, the world's population is systematically destroyed. This apocalyptic film by Fukasaku is a solid example of how these films should be made, because it actually has some balls and an overall bleak tone to it. The opening half is finely crafted in terms of the spread of the disease, while the second half focuses on the isolated group of survivors. There are also a few plot developments that remain unexplained, and some unrealistic elements to deal with, but there is also some very surprising twists later in the film. Due to the global focus of events, the cast mostly consists of non-Japanese actors, but they give good performances. The uncut 156-minute version was viewed. One should avoid the United States version, which cuts an insane 48 minutes of runtime. In my opinion, this is a forgotten 80s classic. Number 2, Crest of Betrayal, from 1994. This is a drama, horror, action hybrid. This film has an utterly fascinating premise, as it blends the legend of the 47 Ronin with the ghost story of Yotsuya. This is a unique storyline, and the film makes good on its potential. The period's set designs and clothing are visually striking, and the lengthy, authentic Japanese dances and songs are mesmerizing. The performances range from natural to theatrical, but they are very impressive in both styles. There are some strange moments here to enjoy as well, especially when the acting troupe is on screen. The finale contributes a crazy mix of action and horror that will surely satisfy. This film is freaking awesome. And number 1, my number 1 Fukasaku film is, of course, Battle Royale from 2000. This is a thriller. A class of 9th graders are selected from the annual Battle Royale lottery. The students, played by a star-studded cast, are kidnapped, transported to an island, armed with everything from GPS tracking devices to Uzis, and then ordered to kill each other over a 3-day period until one winner remains, thereby earning his or her freedom. A variety of cultural and philosophical moral dilemmas are explored in what is one of the most controversial films of the last 20 years. Amazingly, the viewer is quickly pulled into this game of death and, as events progress, begins to root for some students while hoping for the demise of others. There's also a thought-provoking angle that becomes evident when the viewer tries to figure out their own strategy if placed in this hellish scenario. Now, given the creative concept of the film, there are a vast array of classic sequences, perhaps the most extraordinary of which occurs in a lighthouse. The pace of this film is relentless from the opening moments to the final frame. In my opinion, this is Fukasaku's best film. So those were my personal favorite, Kinji Fukasaku films. So I hope this list can provide some recommendations for those who are unfamiliar with this director. And if you've seen some of his films already, Tell me your favorites in the comments section below. And as always, we will see you next time.